Whether or not you straighten your beard before trimming really comes down to whether or not you straighten your beard most of the time. Now, most of the time, I use a hairdryer in the morning after I've got out of the shower, just on a lower heat, and that kind of semi-straightens my hair. I do not use a beard straightener that often. I haven't used this for a couple of months, and that's because it just overheats my hair, I think. So if I am going to trim up my hair, I make sure that my beard is in the current condition that it is most of the time. And so that means before trimming my hair, I do straighten it a little bit, but there are a few tips and tricks and reasons for why you may want to straighten your hair, your beard hair, before trimming it. And we're going to talk about those in this video. This video is based on an article on beardgrowingpro.com, so go check out that because there is a lot more information that I can cram into that article than is in this video. And also, if this video is helpful, please remember to give it a thumbs up and give me a subscribe if you feel like it. I feel like the rule of thumb for trimming your beard should come down to getting it into the condition that it is most of the time. If you do not straighten or blow dry your hair even a little bit most days, then I would just completely not even bother straightening it or heat treating it while trimming it. Now, the thing about trimming is that I believe that trimming kind of provides about 80 to 90% of your actual style. So I'm about maybe a week and a half away from my last trim, and the bottom starts sort of like splaying out a little bit, and it starts to get a bit fuzzy around the edge. My lip here is just starting to get covered up by the hairs again, and so all of that means that I really need to get my beard into this condition, how I wear it most days before trimming it, because if I over straighten it, as soon as something weird happens, like it's a damp day, like I get it wet, like it cools down quickly, it will instantly kind of like sort of shrink up and shrivel up and get curlier, and I can throw the lines of the beard completely all out of whack. So I make sure that before trimming, I get my beard into the same condition it is most days, and then I use trimmers or scissors to kind of tidy it up or do a big kind of trim up and shaping. But at the end of this video, I'm going to share with you exactly what the process and steps that I go through before trimming up my beard so that it looks great every single time. I don't think you should straighten your hair if you work in an environment that is particularly kind of humid, or it is gonna get wet most of the time. Now, I live in Australia, and it's only in winter where my beard is likely to get wet during the day. And like I said, if you straighten your beard and then it gets wet, it's gonna shrivel up, it's gonna shrink, and that's because the act of heating your beard breaks the bonds between the proteins in the hair, and it resets them straight. As soon as your hair gets moisture in it, those bonds break and reform into how it is meant to be naturally, which is typically curlier and wirier, and so really, if your beard is getting wet regularly, I really don't recommend trimming when it is straightened. You want to trim it up as if it has just come out of the shower. You can sort of towel dry it, you can give it a light brush, but make sure that it is in the same condition that it is going to be most of the time, because everyone likes a longer beard. I feel like I'm always, no matter how long my beard is, I'm always trying to get it a little bit longer. And if I trim it when it's straight, then I trim it when it's sort of at its longest, and then when it gets a little bit humid or a little bit damp, or it gets a bit of rain on it, it shrinks up, and I'm like, oh, my beard's short again. It kind of feels like I've undone like months of work. So yeah, that's another reason why if you do get your beard wet regularly, you may want to keep it a little bit longer, a little bit bushier, a little bit thicker, a little bit curlier, so that it looks more substantial and doesn't kind of like shrink back into itself, which can be a little bit disheartening if you really trimmed it up nice and well and you lose all those shapes as well. So wet beards and cold beards do kind of shrivel up, and it does change the protein bonding in the hair. So yes, if your hair gets wet, it's probably best not to straighten your beard before trimming it. Making sure that your beard is kind of the same straightness when you trim it as to every day really comes down to the tools that you are using. So don't, on your trimming days, use a different tool because you've got time or whatever. I did that a couple of times. So for example, I always every morning sort of give my beard hair, a quick kind of, not this hair, obviously, give a little bit of a blow dry to kind of straighten it. And, that is my go-to workhorse. Now, I do have a straightener. Now go check out my other video where I talk about the different straighteners. I used a cheap one and an expensive one, but this is the one I kept because I gave the other one away in a competition. But yes, I have used this before trimming, but when this is my daily sort of driver, this one just over straightens it. It makes it much flatter and longer, which means that as soon as I go back to using this, the lines that I cut in have completely changed because the beard gets sort of like shorter and curlier and denser. Now the thing about this, the beard comb, is that it tends to straighten the very outside hairs. It doesn't get up inside. So here's super curly, and I found that the outside hairs, where it actually touches the heat elements, that's where it gets nice and straight. Whereas with this, it gets kind of straighter, a little bit deeper, I think, because it's really like the hair being, the air being blown into the hair, and the comb is going in a little bit deeper. So yes, making sure that you use the same tools before trimming up your hair means that it won't sort of like change when you go back to your daily sort of like heat treatment and muck up all of those nice lines that you spent hours meticulously trimming in. So there's a little tip. Make sure that you use the same tools, and look, if you use your beard straightener every single day, that's great. Use this before trimming. If not, don't get excited, use this and then go back to this, because the results of your beard trim will be a little bit different and you may be a little bit disappointed with it, just like I was. So here are all of the steps that I think you should go through, that I go through, and I kind of perfected over the years that I've had the beard before trimming. So I do a massive trim up every let's say every 2 weeks or thereabouts, where I line up, I take off a little bit of length, I tidy up, I get rid of the fuzziness around the edges, I cut back to the point of maximum density if it's a big trim, and I shape up. So I want to make sure that this kind of tapers down. I'm trying to get this a little bit longer at the front instead of having a flat bottom like I used to have. So I kind of just keep heading towards that direction. I'm always aiming towards my ideal beard, and that's where I'm going at the moment. So, it used to be quite steep, but I'm flattening that off. I'm having a little bit of a curve longer in the chin, and also I really like clearing up the mustache now really well. So to make sure that my beard ends up looking the way I actually want it to after the trim, the preparation is very important, and that can include straightening or blow drying like I do. So the first thing is I make sure my beard is shampooed. I kind of want it to be the driest it can be, and I know that kind of sounds a bit strange, but when I shampoo my beard, it does end up the wiriest, the kind of frizziest, all of the kind of hairs that I've spent ages tucking in with beard balm or oil kind of start splaying out because there's nothing holding them in, no wax residue. And that's kind of what you want before you're going in to trim up your beard, because you want it to look its worst so you can trim it into its best. And so yes, I make sure that all this is splayed out, and I don't make a special effort with the heat treatment. So shampoo, dry out that beard like you would with a normal wash, and then I don't put any conditioner in because I do want it to look its worst. So then it splays out. Mine, like I said, comes out at the bottom like this, and then I literally get the trimmer and just trim off those bits to keep it growing down. The second thing is a light towel dry, just to get rid of the majority of the moisture from the shower, and then I get up inside as well. That's kind of important. And then a light oiling, very, very light. 1 or 2 drops on a beard my length is all I need, but I make sure it's kind of spread nicely throughout my hands, all over the beard, nice and deep, and then a nice bristle brush comb to get that oil everywhere, and then a very, very light hair dry. So I do not want it to be as hot as I normally do sort of after a shower, but I want to take it so it's just off damp, so my beard's like just dry. A little bit of dampness is fine, and that's when I start trimming up my beard. And so I trim. And now the thing is trimming really happens in 2 steps for me. So I don't use a beard straightener, but I do straighten it to some extent with heat from a hairdryer. And I trim it up, and then I let it dry out completely. Typically, over the course of trimming up my beard, I will notice it sort of getting a little bit sort of tighter. And one thing I've learned is the first pass of the trimmer is take off as little as possible. And as the beard dries out even more while you're trimming, you'll notice it sort of tighten up and get a little bit shorter. And if you do that massive trim before it is fully dry, it is disappointing with how much you actually take off. You know, like I remember a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, I took off some length here when it was super wet. It curled up and I was like, oh no, I'm back to where I was like 6 months ago. I don't think it was that bad, but that was my fear. So yeah, I take kind of two approaches. The first approach when it's just off damp is I trim up with trimmers. Go check out my other video where you look at my daily, my sort of like trim up routine. And I trim up here, and then as I'm allowing it to sort of like dry even more, I focus on the mustache. This really doesn't change very much. The top line and the mustache really doesn't change so much, you know, during heat treatment. So that's where I'll spend a lot of time initially. And then when I'm sure my beard is completely dry, that's when I can go for that final cut. And I'll often give it kind of a final blow dry into position at a slightly higher heat just to get the line super crisp. And that's it. And then I may back it up with a little bit of balm or butter. So yeah, that is really how I use heat as part of my trimming process. As you can see, it's a little bit more complicated than just using it and trimming it. But yeah, follow the tips in this video and you cannot go wrong. Should you straighten your beard before trimming? Well, it depends, and I hope this video has helped you. Ultimately, do not do anything like special to your beard before trimming it, I think is the take-home message. Remember to like this video, go and subscribe to the channel if this is useful. I've got heaps more information on that channel, and go check out beardgrowingpro.com because I have got so much information on that blog. It is growing at a rate of knots, and I'd love for you to learn everything you need to know about getting your beard looking awesome. I shall see you in the next video.